Hey, what's going on, Who Dat Nation? It is yours truly, TJ Jones, the host of the State of the Saints podcast, and this is Facebook Live. I decided to go live on Facebook, quite frankly, because today is Wednesday, and normally I try to put out a daily Saints vlog every single day, talking about the team. We all know that the New Orleans Saints have a matchup against the bitter rivals of the Atlanta Falcons, and I've talked about that all week. I talked about the Atlanta Falcons possibly being a trap game for the New Orleans Saints. I've seen a couple interviews coming from Cam Jordan, offensive tackle Teron Armstead, and also Teddy Bridgewater, and it seems like everybody is just kind of dialed in. They feel like the bye week won't affect anything. They feel rested and ready to go back to work. Cam Jordan was actually upset. He said that he wished that the bye week didn't happen because he felt like the defense was clicking on all cylinders and, they were really trending in the right direction. But I think the New Orleans Saints are going to be ready for this game. I feel like it can be a trap game, but I think that the New Orleans Saints, everything that they've been through over the past couple of years, they're not looking past anybody. I think they're looking at this as a game where they have to go in and they have to execute. I mean, make no mistake about it. I understand that the Atlanta Falcons are 1-7. I understand that they're having a down season, but there's a bunch of prideful men on that side, and they are going to want to play spoiler to the New Orleans Saints. I mean, they're looking at the news, they're watching the media, they're watching the power rankings. They see that the Saints are one of the top 5 NFL teams, according to all media outlets. If you've been following ESPN power ranking, the Saints are ranked number 3, which I don't understand why. They have the 49ers, who are undefeated, which I understand, and they have the New England Patriots up there. But when you look at the power rankings, I think the Saints should be at least number 2. I think that they should be number 2 because I feel like at this particular period in time, they're a better team than the New England Patriots. And you can say that the San Francisco 49ers are undefeated, so you can understand why they're number 1. I think that the New Orleans Saints are going to be ready to play this game, and I'm excited about it. So at this time, if you have any questions or anything like that you want to ask me about the team, if you have any questions about the game that's coming up against the Atlanta Falcons, feel free to comment down below and ask me the questions that you want to ask me. I have no problem with answering them. What I'm looking forward to in this game, I'm looking forward to seeing some of the key players coming back. I heard that Alvin Kamara will return in this game, and I also heard Jared Cook will be playing in this game. I read a very interesting article also. They were talking about how the New Orleans Saints need another wide receiver on the other side of Michael Thomas. And they saying that Michael Thomas is basically everything that they have. And I thought this was very interesting, man. I don't know if y'all know this or not, but Michael Thomas has 579 more receiving yards than the next person next to him. And he has 43 more receptions than the next leading receiver of the New Orleans Saints. So Michael Thomas is basically everything when it comes to the receiving corps of the New Orleans Saints. And that's something that's very, very scary to me, because the fact of the matter is if teams start buckling down and start double and triple teaming Michael Thomas, that might be an issue. So I need those wide receivers in the second half of the season to step up. I need to see more out of Austin Carr. I need to see more out of Lil Jordan Humphreys and Hogan, these young wide receivers that the Saints picked up. These guys really need to step up. I like what I saw out of Dan Arnold in the last game against the Arizona Cardinals. I think he did an outstanding job stepping up. It seems like Dan Arnold wants to get better. You can tell that NFC Championship game where he dropped that pass in the back of the end zone on that third down really got to him. And it seems like he's trying to rise to the occasion. So I like what I see out of Dan Arnold. But some of these other guys, they got to step up. They got to step up because, Michael Thomas, is incredible as he is, you're asking him to do a whole lot. And these wide receivers really just need to go out there and perform to the best of their ability. What's going on, Earl and Sean? Thank you very much for commenting. Earl says Dan Quinn needs to be fired. Look, I don't know if Dan Quinn needs to be fired. I don't know that. I think that when you're looking at the Atlanta Falcons, I don't think that Dan Quinn is the problem. I think that the problem with the Atlanta Falcons is that the general manager of the team is making poor decisions. And also, when you have offensive coordinators like a revolving door, that can be a problem. I want to focus on the San Francisco 49ers back in the day. I know y'all all remember before Colin Kaepernick, Alex Smith was the quarterback of the 49ers. And it was like a 7-year stretch where Alex Smith had 7 different offensive coordinators. And his career kind of, suffered because of that. I don't think you understand, because the Saints have had the same offensive coordinators for 12, 13 years. I mean, when you got Sean Payton and Sneaky Pete Carmichael, the Saints have basically had the same offensive coordinators all that time. But with the Atlanta Falcons, I mean, you had Steve Sarkisian, you had Dirk Cutter twice, you had Kyle Shanahan, who is now the head coach of the San Francisco 49ers. I mean, and then you had all these different guys who were coming in, running the offense, and that's a different playbook. That's a different offensive philosophy. So I think the issue is the offense. It's not so much of the defense. Now, the general manager's job is to make sure that he gets the best players inside of the organization. Dan Quinn is not one of those guys. He's not a Bill Belichick. He's not one of these guys that has a final say-so or the final 53, or even a Sean Payton. Sean Payton has the final say-so or the final 53 along with Mickey Loomis. So when you're looking at players coming in, that's on the general manager and the scout team. So I think that that's the issue. I think if Arthur Blank is looking at somebody, he needs to be looking at the general manager and the scouting department, because they're the ones that are getting these guys in that are not being beneficial to the team. So I don't think Dan Quinn needs to be fired. I don't think a couple bad years should define that. I mean, a couple years back, these guys were in the Super Bowl. Now, you can say it was because of Kyle Shanahan and his offensive philosophy, but at the end of the day, Dan Quinn still was the head coach. And, it wasn't his problem and his issue that, that all of this has transpired. I mean, it's not his fault that Kyle Shanahan got a head coaching job. And it's not his fault that the general manager got some of these offensive coordinators in that wasn't being beneficial to the, to the evolution of a Matt Ryan and some of these other offensive players. So, in my opinion, I just think that it's just a down year. And I know that they're ranked 32. They're ranked dead last when it comes to the defense. But like I said, it all comes down to who you actually have in the building. And I don't feel like they have the right 53. And that falls on the shoulder of the general manager. Sean Phillips says, we need to work out Dez and see where he's at. Yeah, I think that they should work out Dez Bryant, but I don't know. I don't know what the Saints are trying to do. I don't know why they don't want to call him. It's not like it's going to cost them an arm and a leg. I feel like, I think the last contract he had was like $1.5 million. I mean, it wasn't even that much money. So I don't know why they don't want to work them out. I don't know if they just don't want to go that route, or they feel like they got the right guys in the building, which, I trust Sean Payton and I trust Mickey Loomis. I think that they make the right decisions. But when you look at the production of the wide receiver course, something has to give. Some of these guys have got to step up, man. Like if the New Orleans Saints organization has trust in them, then they need to rise to the occasion, because it just seems like they just got a bunch of guys out there, a bunch of decoys, just to get defenders away from the play so Michael Thomas can catch the ball, like Alvin Kamara can catch the ball, or Jared Cook can catch the ball. Like, these guys have to find ways to get open. And the most alarming thing about this to me is a lot of these guys are getting man-to-man coverage and they can't beat their one-on-ones. And when you can't beat your one-on-ones, that's a problem to me. That's about strength. That's about, route running. Like that's very, very alarming that teams are double covering Michael Thomas. He's getting open, but these guys can't win their one-on-one matchups. That's very alarming to me. But to answer your question about Dez Bryant, I think they do need to call him in. Don't know why they haven't called him in, but at the end of the day, the Saints are 7-1. So you have no choice but to trust Sean Payton. But more film is going to come out. Teams are going to be able to know how to scheme against the New Orleans Saints as the weeks go by. But you got to be able to find somebody outside of Michael Thomas that can make plays. Now, you can say Traquan Smith, when he comes back, maybe he can go out there and perform, but we haven't seen that, even when he's been in a game. We do need another receiver in the playoffs. They're going to double Michael Thomas. Yeah, New Orleans Uptown, yeah, absolutely. Like, we definitely need another wide receiver. We need guys that can step up. I mean, I think a couple of weeks, Keith Kirkwood is going to come back. Traquan Smith is going to come back. These guys are beneficial to the offense. And maybe that's the reason why the Saints haven't called up Dez Bryant, because they feel like these guys are going to come back and contribute. But whatever, like, just go out there and you got to perform. I mean, once again, Michael Thomas has 579 more receiving yards and 43 more catches than the next person in the receiving corps. And the next person isn't even a receiver. It's a tight end. It's Jared Cook. What's up, bruh? Would you start P.J. Williams over Gardner? No, I would not. P.J. Williams is a guy who has been suspended for 2 games. You have to make an example out of him. I mean, it was a very selfish decision. When you're going out there, getting DUIs, you're thinking about yourself. I mean, you're not thinking about the team. You're not thinking about your future. So I think that he needs to, pay a price. I think he needs to be benched and earn his way back into the starting rotation. I mean, for the last couple games that he's been out, Chauncey Gardner-Johnson has been stepping up, making plays. You got to respect the fact that the swagger that he plays with, the confidence. You got to like the fact that he can, make tackles. I've seen a couple of tackles in the Chicago Bears game that really had me optimistic about him. I mean, I think it was like a 3rd and 7 play where it was just one-on-one, him against the running back, I think Tariq Cohen, and he made an open field tackle. Also, a couple pass breakups against the Arizona Cardinals. I mean, he was all over the field. We can't forget about him coming off the safety blitz a couple weeks ago against the Dallas Cowboys that kind of sealed the game for the New Orleans Saints. So when you're looking at a guy like this, a young, hungry guy, versus a guy that made a selfish decision, I'll have to go with C.J. Gardner-Johnson the way that he's playing. And the suspension of P.J. Williams, I mean, it came at like the worst time because now the world and the organization has saw that Chauncey Gardner-Johnson it has stepped up and has really played really, really well. And now it's like, we're not going to stop the growth of this young man because you want to come back and you think that you're going to be in a starting rotation. It doesn't work like that. So he has to work his way back, man. I mean, you make a selfish decision and now you have to regain the confidence of your organization and the confidence of your team. So I'm pretty sure a lot of people got love for him. They understand that he made a mistake. But for every mistake that we make, you all know, I mean, there are consequences behind it. And the consequences is him not starting in the game. So that's my opinion. They will fire Dan Quinn right after we beat them. Watch. Look, if they fire Dan Quinn, it would be a mistake, in my opinion. I understand what this is all about. It's not about Dan Quinn losing these games. It's about Dan Quinn being a defensive-minded coach in an offensive-minded world right now. I mean, you look at some of these offensive players that the Saints have. You look at some of these guys, Pete Carmichael, Sean Payton. You look around the league, head coach Sean McVay out there in Cincinnati. Everybody wants to get an offensive-minded coach. And I think that's the reason why Dan Quinn will get fired, because they want an offensive-minded coach. They want somebody that is basically, just a boy genius. Like everybody wants to have an offensive-minded coach, and I feel like that's the main reason why they will want to fire Dan Quinn. It's not because he's not a good coach. Like I said, a couple of years ago, they were in the Super Bowl. So I think the reason why they would fire him because everybody wants to transition and have an offensive-minded coach, and that seems like that's the route everybody's trying to go. I mean, Cliff Kingsbury, Matt LaFleur, what is the guy named Zach? What is it, Brown out there in Cincinnati? I mean, everybody wants to get offensive-minded coach. Everybody wants to get the next Sean McVay. But the Atlanta Falcons, they're probably going to try to do that, and they're probably, in my opinion, that's going to be a mistake. Let's see, Kamara from cheating us out the Super Bowl, and that's what's going on in Atlanta. Oh, karma. You saying karma. Karma for cheating us out the Super Bowl. I don't know if it had anything to do with that. I don't think it's not like Arthur Blank said, okay, man, I'm here a couple $1 million, man, cheat the Saints because we don't want to see them in Atlanta. I don't think he had absolutely nothing to do with that. You can blame the league. I can look at the fact that Los Angeles is a growing, franchise out there in Los Angeles. They only been there for a couple of years. And what's the best way to try to gain interest is to get these guys inside the Super Bowl. I mean, they got a multi-billion-dollar stadium that they're going to be playing in next year alongside the Chargers. So I think that can have a lot to do with it. Glenn Payne says the offensive line is doing a great job. Both blocking for the run and pass. Very underrated. Yeah, the offensive line is doing an outstanding job. I think the key thing about it is that everybody's healthy, including Teron Armstead. Now, we all know that Teron Armstead is one of the best offensive left tackles in all of the NFL, but he has a tendency of getting hurt. This year, he has been healthy throughout the season, and the Saints have had no significant injuries to the offensive line. And when you have all your offensive linemen intact, that's chemistry right there. So if you don't have to worry about trying to plug and play, you have the right guys on the front line, you can really do some great work. And they've done an outstanding job. So as long as they can stay healthy throughout the season, I think they should be okay. Let's see. I think we will sign Dez Bryant in December right before the playoffs. Look, I don't know if they'll sign him or not, but I'm interested to see how this second half of the season is going to be. I think the next few games is going to decide if the Saints feel like they need to go out there and try to get themselves another wide receiver because, the best thing about this is you got a lot of players that got injured at the beginning of the season. They're going to be coming back. So if they're coming back, they're going to still be a little bit fresh. Because even though they've been dealing with injuries and rehabbing, they haven't been taking that wear and tear on their body. They haven't been absorbing those hits. And you can say the same thing when it comes to Drew Brees. I mean, Drew Brees, this might have been a blessing in disguise for him. I mean, a 40-year-old quarterback who missed 5 games due to a thumb injury. It wasn't anything dealing with his lower extremities or anything like that. I mean, so you just out and had to get thumb surgery. So that's less wear and tear on your body. So all you have to worry about is trying to finish up these next 8 games. So that might be beneficial to the New Orleans Saints, with these wide receivers like Traquan Smith dealing with a high ankle sprain. He'll come back. Key Kirkwood dealing with what he's dealing with. So less wear and tear on the body. Guys will be ready to rock and roll towards the later part of the season. But I want to thank you all for submitting your questions. Thank you very much. Just wanted to go live. It's been a while since I went on Facebook Live and answered your questions about the New Orleans Saints. But you can always feel free to, inbox me at the State of the Saints podcast on Facebook. And also, if you're on YouTube, you can subscribe to the YouTube channel, youtube.com, search the State of the Saints podcast. And thank you all very much, for taking the time out to ask your questions. Once again, my name is TJ Jones, and this has been the State of the Saints podcast. And like always, all I got to say is, who dat?